Welcome back, everyone. This is Red Spotlight. I am Alexis, and this is David. You know the drill here. What do? We're going to talk about movies and the world of movies, and it's kind of been shaken up several times this past week, but as has been the case these last few years, that really shouldn't be a surprise. So here on our 444th show, we are going to discuss the behemoth that is, of course, the writers' strike that is going to disrupt everybody in this industry that we cover. And then, of course, we had a big movie, one of which all of us here were in high anticipation for, and that is the latest out of James Gunn, his finale to his trilogy at Marvel Studios, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. As I'm sure some of you may very well be aware, we have seen it several times. We like to prepare here, obviously, on this show, but when it came to this film, I'm very happy to say just a little bit of a preview here. Very much happy to indulge in the film over and over and over again, and I can't wait to start talking about this movie when we get there on this show, again, here on Red Spotlight number 444. Just a couple of, I don't know if we want to call it amendments or something, but just to keep people posted on what we've been, seeing. I was actually, I didn't get the chance to rewatch Guardians 1 and 2 because I was doing a different kind of rewatch. I decided to, this was very spur of the moment, rewatch the films that I had recently put as my favorite movie of the year in recent years, which is an interesting kind of rewatch because they're kind of different movies. So I actually started watching Another Round, which was my 2020 number one movie of the year. Then I followed it up with Luca from 2021, and then Fabelmans from 2022. Which, by the way, surprisingly, all three of those films paired very well with each other. And of course, in no less fashion as it is movies that happen to really, appeal to me, loved them all all over again. And then I continued to follow suit with 2019's Avengers Endgame and 2018's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And currently, I am getting into, once again, from 2018, my number one favorite film of the year, which was Star Wars The Last Jedi. So, obviously, I believe I've said this in the past, I don't really rewatch movies a lot. But every now and then you get in a kind of a mood to do it. Usually I do just kind of like binge whatever, show in the background and kind of like keep the time going, but I wanted to revisit some of these stories, and it's been well worth the reward. I'll tell you that. It does the soul a lot of good to relive something that was so good in the first place, So I just wanted to give a bit of an update on that. And then also something else that David and I had been talking about, honestly, a lot off air, had been, this little bit of a rewatch I've been doing for the anime of Pokemon, which was something that I had mentioned previously on the show that I had not really delved into in decades, literally. Well, a little bit over a decade. It's also very long, and so, I have to say that it had been a really, really good experience reliving these stories again, and I enjoyed all the different series. I loved the eras that explored through Johto and Hoenn and Sinnoh especially. I do remember that being a tumultuous time because of the voice cast change, of which, of course, we've gone into we've discussed in the podcast beforehand, but I did forget how much I really did enjoy that era. The Diamond and Pearl era was when I first experienced the games, and so that alone was just kind of nostalgic in its own right. I do love a lot of the designs for those regional mons, and I feel like just about everything when it came from, a gym battle or a battle perspective or a contest perspective or even a rocket perspective, there was very little for me to find fault in that era, and in a lot of ways, it did feel like a new peak, as far as like the tried and true ways that the series had done up until that point. And then, as we all know, there was there's a very notable reset that occurs immediately thereafter with the era that is known as black and white. A lot of things reset, and I have to be honest with you, David. This was something that I was watching, every day, because I was enjoying it. It was like, hey, wow, it's like, hey, I really do enjoy these. And then I guess this is very predictable, right? But the second I get to black and white, it feels like you just hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
you just hit a wall, and oh my God, I am struggling. And look, it's not like it's crap. There are some things in there that are of note and interesting in and of themselves. For example, I just finished watching one of the recent arcs I finished was it was kind of random, but then again, the whole thing involving Rocket was pretty random in the whole era. But Giovanni shows up and he has Meloetta, and they summon 3 legendaries and they try and destroy everything. And that was, again, interesting to see how far the show had come from a visual standpoint, for sure, but right now I'm like in the plasma arc of it, and I'm just like so uninterested. So uninterested in like everybody and everything, and like the characters do not interest me. The new characters, I should say. Even the old characters, I think I don't know what, there was a special kind of like, I don't know, charisma vacuum going on in that era where like even I can't get excited anymore about, Ash or Team Rocket. And Team Rocket especially was like, I feel like they really overcorrected on what they were going for, because when you remove the humor and the character from those characters, what are they left with? Okay, they're bad, and I guess they're competent, and that's about all you can say. They're just, and I know a lot of people were like complaining, like, "Oh, why is Rocket in every episode and all the previous eras, and like, isn't it boring?" Well, I don't know. There was a charm to that always worked, at least for me. And then in black and white, it just kind of was like ripped away. But I mean, it was definitely a change that they tried to do. I don't care about any of. That's the other thing too. It's like the Unova region Pokemon, I just don't care about. I don't like the designs for the most part, and so I forget. Literally, I forget them. I don't care about them. I gotta say, I skipped like 99% because look, so much had changed, and what had replaced it was just not engaging. Even something as subtle as like the music wasn't what I think anyway, or what I associate the series to be. By this point in black and white, any music or themes that had come from the 4Kids era had long since been like stripped away. But Diamond and Pearl had done that already, and they had like really great, compositions and arrangements of themes. Like Dawn's theme, for example. I love Dawn's theme. The do 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 do, like that, it works really well. And then with black and white, I can't pick out a single theme. All of the rivals are unbelievably irritating. Irritating.
Yeah. Wait, was it in? No, I think it might have been like Battle Frontier. But wasn't there like a rival sort of, where this one guy was battling Ash, but like he cared too much about their friendship, and so he just kind of like gave up on the battle. But this was like in the Pokemon League or something.
You were talking about I forget the guy.
Had like a red shirt.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. I forget about the guy's name. Hilariously enough, the voice actor was the same one that does King Kai on the Dragon Ball series. I know there's a crossover there, which is kind of strange. But you're talking about the Hoenn League.
Okay.
That would have been in season 8 Advanced Battle. The Hoenn League.
Actually, I do remember now. This one guy had like a Lucario. Or like a Riolu, and then it evolved into a Lucario. I don't know if you might have met him yet.
Is this the Unova League?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I skipped that.
Okay.
I didn't care.
Yeah, I remember the guy. He was fine. It's just. I mean, yeah, I kind of didn't really care about the rivals. I don't know what the heck got me to like really watch this show to the very end. I don't know, maybe if it was. Well, I mean, for one thing, I did play this game.
Mm-hmm.
This was technically my first Pokemon game, so I think that just kind of got me invested in trying to watch it from the very end.
Yeah, but I told you all this stuff off air about my thoughts, and you didn't seem very surprised, which obviously communicates to me that you yourself were very underwhelmed with this entire era.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like I said, though, this was just like it really was like an experimental phase for them.
I'm honestly, like, to me, all of the issues that I have with this era, it's like, yes, to be fair to them, you could argue that this was very experimental, but it almost feels like they forgot what made the series special in the first place. Because everywhere you look, like across the board, it's just a complete drop off in fascination and a complete drop off in the quality of the execution of these things. And again, this is just more beyond just, Ash being reset to, I guess, a beginner of sorts. It goes more than that. I mean, the main group here in Ensemble is just wholly uninteresting. And the two side characters that are introduced here are based off of concepts that the writers themselves have no idea what they're talking about. But they have to keep that shtick on it, and then it gets to the point where, it's irritating, because then you have, like, Silent, and a lot of his dialogue is, like, involving, the taste of something or the recipe of something, and I'm like, okay, but I still don't know what a connoisseur is. Like, again, it just, like, it's a complete departure, I think, holistically, from everything that had come before. And it is such a drag. Like, I would even think that, I don't want to compare it to this, but I kept thinking about this. To me, the way that I view the black and white era of the show is how I view the Chibnall era of Doctor Who.
Oh.
And look, I don't mean to take, like, pot shots here, but let me explain why I feel that way. Because, interestingly enough, in both situations, before these eras that I'm very critical of, there were three generations of, or three eras, if you will, of the show. With Doctor Who, there was, you can count in Eccleston with Tennant, but Eccleston, Tennant, Smith, and Capaldi, all those were there, but all together they make up what is known as Doctor Who. And then with Pokemon, it was, the original series, Hoenn, Advance, and then of course Diamond and Pearl. And then you get in a new era, and at least for me, in both circumstances, with black and white and the Chibnall era of Doctor Who, it really, like, the more it goes, the more joyless it becomes, and the more apparent it becomes that something had gone wrong here. And I know we haven't spoken about it much yet. This is Doctor Who, and maybe because we did so much early on about a year ago when we heard all the announcements and all the people that were going to come back, but there've been a lot of more images that have been released, and I think it goes without saying, I'm sure you feel the same way, David, that we're just unbelievably excited for Doctor Who, and it doesn't feel like another season of Doctor Who. It feels like it's come back for the first time since 2017. Because to me, when I look at those Chibnall seasons, I'm sorry, but Doctor Who, that is not. Doctor Who, that is not. And if I'm going to rewatch the show, I'm skipping those. I'm sorry, I'm just skipping that whole era, because it's just completely joyless and honestly incompetent in a lot of different areas. So to me, this is the first time I'm actually going to enjoy Doctor Who for the first time in like 5-6 years. And then with black and white, like, again, and I've seen others say this as well, that if you're doing a rewatch, maybe just like, finish your last Diamond and Pearl episode and then just start off with X and Y.
Mm-hmm.
And just don't even bother, because I suspect there's going to be a lot more that connects Diamond and Pearl to X and Y than Diamond and Pearl to Black and White. That's what I think anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see when we get there, if I get there. At this point, I'm just like tired of it.
Mm-hmm. No, honestly, you'll notice a difference in the first episode in X and Y. So I think it'll grab your attention.
Okay. So, with all that being said, we need to address what is happening in the world of movies. Perhaps there could be nothing more important going on in the world of movies than one of the key cornerstones that makes all the industry run, and that would be the writers, declaring nationally and officially that the working conditions are no longer suitable for them, and ordering a strike, voting for a strike, after their partners across the table, which represent, of course, your multinational corporations, which, of course, are your studios, do not wish to grant them the asks that they are, demanding. So with that, they have voted to strike, seeing no alternative to do so. And there's a lot to be said about this. I would say that before anyone even gets into, what this means for your favorite project, I would sincerely ask people to perhaps have front of mind some kind of sympathy or empathy. And I know it's hard for people these days, apparently. I don't know why it is, but apparently it's a lot to ask for people to have some kind of empathy. But to put yourself in the position of these writers who do not feel like they are getting paid what they are owed or what they are worth. And wouldn't you want the same? Wouldn't you want to be, paid what you are owed instead of taking what they give you? I don't understand why anyone who has the capacity to empathize with other human beings and other working people would not be on the side of the writers. Just from a human being standpoint, I want to put that out there, and I think that's a good place to start off with this whole discussion. I think it's also kind of important to note that why would you, as an individual who follows this industry, why would you want to be on the side of the studios who, quite frankly, are in many ways shown to be, let alone, heartless and cruel, more importantly, incompetent? Movie executives, particularly, you have to ask yourself, with the litany of incompetent decisions they make that lead to, the loss of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars studios every year. Who was it that decided that producers, or the studios, or the executives, mind you, more specifically, should make most of the money off the success of an individual project? Why would you want to defend that? Why would you want to defend the richest people in this industry who have absolutely nothing to lose? And make no mistake about it, I know I'm already starting off on a macro level, because it is. This is obviously a story that, while a lot of people are covering it mostly pertaining to the movie industry, it is a story that pertains to everybody everywhere. How does it do that? Well, I'm going to tell you how. Aside from the fact that we live in a society that values far more profits and those who chase profits over any kind of advancement in the human condition. Putting that to the side, we have a continuous problem, among many others, in not just this country, but in most countries that have a system in which protects the rich and keeps the masses, the middle class, working class, where they're at. The conditions are the same all over the world. The middle class has not had an increase in their wealth in over 30 years, while the 1% continue to hog everything up and up and up and up. That will not change, and that hasn't changed because the 1% have so much wealth and power, they fund, they bankroll the campaigns of politicians who then get into office and protect their investments, protect their wealth, and protect their power. People may ask, why hasn't there been a new labor rights bill passed in such a long time? People might ask, why has the government not done anything to break up a lot of these multinational mergers, like when Time Warner merged with Warner Brothers, or when Discovery merged with Warner Brothers, or when Disney simply ate 20th Century Fox? Why did they allow that to happen, which then resulted in the job losses of tens of thousands of people? Well, that is because the system that we have in place is filled with people who work for one entity and one entity alone, and that is corporate America, and that is corporate power all over the world. And these people have no shame. These people have no desire to give up even an inch of their power. It does not take a lot for them to give up just a few minuscule amounts of their wealth to fund literally everything. And I mean that, literally everything, let alone the minuscule, even more minuscule asks that the working masses are asking for. They're just asking what they are owed. They're, for the first time, recognizing that it had been decades since they have seen an increase in their paychecks. Meanwhile, everything else around them goes up in price. They can no longer afford to live under these conditions. I'm not speaking just about the writers. I just mean working people, generally speaking, across industries, are having to live with these realities. And I have to ask people, why would you go out of your way to defend people like Jeff Bezos, who has more wealth than most of the people to ever be born will ever see combined? And yet, they can't, for a single moment, allow the existence of a labor union that defends the rights of their workers. They spend so much of their own capital and wealth to crush any kind of mobilization toward unionization. They spend more money crushing unions than they would by allowing them to exist and letting workers be paid what they are owed. On a macro level, this is happening all over the country, all over the world, across all industries. I say this to give people a good frame of mind and context for why this is happening, why it's happening now, and ultimately, why I find it so hard for people to take the side of the corporatists, take the side of people who are, quite frankly, ghoulish and monstrous in their refusal to even give up a few of their crumbs. I think it was even pointed out in the last week that, for whatever reason, inexplicably, David Zaslav, who is the head of the Warner Brothers Discovery Company, took a big bonus last year. And someone had mentioned it. I think they went on TV and said that if they had that bonus they gave to David Zaslav alone would have already paid for all of the things that the writers are asking for. So I say this just to start off this conversation, right? And to give people, I am not here saying it is up to you to decide who you think is right or wrong. My goal is not to do that. My goal is to give you the facts, to give you the information for what it is, to give you the conditions as they are, and letting you know how can you not be in favor of what the writers are asking for, in favor of what working people are asking for. Ultimately, none of these issues will ever be solved unless there is a political movement and or candidate that fights against the corporate elites that have infiltrated both political parties, replaces them holistically, bans money out of politics, and then we can move forward on all these other issues. That's the only way this ever gets solved. But evidently, we're not ready to have that conversation. Unless we believe for a second that I am maybe exaggerating here. Go look at how the trades who, when it comes to covering the entertainment industry are very reliable. And I'm referring to Variety, The Wrap, The Hollywood Reporter. Go look at how they're covering this writer's strike and ask yourself, what agenda do they have? And who it is they are supporting. The headlines that have come out in the last week that have basically been summed up like this. Oh, here's this wonderful thing you guys would have gotten, and thanks to the writers, now you're not going to get it. Is it really surprising that the trades, who are funded by the very people that are seeking to crush unionization and workers everywhere, are also, parroting out their talking points? So, what happened this week? What are they fighting for? What is it that the writers want? Aside from more than what I just listed out there for you to hear. I'm actually going to play, because I feel like I kind of already explained on a macro level what really is the issue here, what's going on. I'm going to play a series of videos from an individual called Grace Randolph, who I feel kind of perfectly summarized what's going on here and gives a good lay of the land. Now, of course, this is not an endorsement of Grace Randolph. I'm not saying that she's great and everything. I'm just saying that she talked about this in a way that I thought was very helpful for people who might not be aware of, what's happening or how this is going to go down. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and start playing these videos right now.
To a friend of mine who's in the Writers Guild on Friday, and he made a very interesting comment. He told me that, in fact, a number of the studios want to strike because every contract has a force majeure clause, that under extraordinary circumstances, the contract can be voided. So guess what counts as an extraordinary circumstance? A writer's strike. So, some people had said that Netflix was particularly aggressive in not being willing to go to the negotiating table, and I bet you Netflix has a lot of contracts they'd like to get rid of. You're going to see a lot of deals be killed. You might not even hear about it in the press, but I think that's very interesting, and that's one of the reasons that I think the strike happened. It's expected to last quite long because it's over such serious stuff and so much money is being fought over, but that's one of the reasons that the strike was most definitely going to happen. There's going to be a domino effect where all the other guilds are going to strike. All the contracts are coming up at the same time in quick succession. So if the directors cross the writers' picket line, then the writers aren't going to support the directors when they go on strike. Everybody's probably going to go on strike because everybody's getting hit hard by streaming. It's all an issue about streaming taking away the money, not just money, but also the number of days that you have to work. So, and also there's discovered there's no money in streaming anyway. So, as I told you, it's like the Mickey Mouse, trying to slice the bean and being like, there's not that much bean here, man. I can't give you any more. I think paying a la carte was obviously a lot more lucrative, and there was a lot more money to go around. So it's really bad. I mean, as Mika pointed out, they're asking for transparency with ratings and viewership, but that doesn't equate money. You're still splitting a very small, when you think about how many people want a piece of that, fee, right? I think streaming is creating a real problem for the way the industry works. So some people were like, hey man, why should I feel bad for anyone who works in Hollywood? Well, I want to tell you something about Hollywood. Hollywood sells itself as a place that pays the big bucks, but the majority of people, I remember once that when I was growing up, there was a woman in my building, my family's building, whose husband worked for NBC. And he ended up quitting and working in another industry and moving to the middle of the country from New York City. And she had told my mother and said, I don't know why everybody thinks the entertainment industry is so lucrative. Most people are paid very little, and it's almost impossible to be able to live in the cities where the entertainment industry is based, New York and Los Angeles, on the salaries that are paid. And also, when you're talking about creatives like writers, they don't work every day. They don't work every week. They only work for a partial amount of time. So there was a very good tweet going around that I really liked. So I screenshotted it to share with you. And this person broke down what a screenwriter gets paid. So most people are staff writers. I mean, consider how many people are in the Writers Guild and how many people write a movie, right? So staff writer works for maybe, they said 9 weeks at $5,000 a week. So that's $45,000 for the gig. Then they have to pay 20% to the agent and the manager. So that's $9,000 right off the top they have to pay to that. Then they have to pay the Writers Guild dues, who's negotiating this deal. That's $675. Then they have to pay their taxes, which is 20%, another $9,000. Look how much is being taken off here. So that means they have $26,000 at the end of the day to take home. And it could be, as this person says, 6 to 12 to maybe more months before they get another job. And so they do not have enough money to cover their expenses without those residuals that would be coming in. That's how people have survived in Hollywood between gigs and until they get that sweet gig that makes them a ton of money. And then this person responded, Leonard Chang, and said, you also have to pay a lawyer, which is an additional 5%. Sometimes you have a business manager. And then also, if you're single, you pay more taxes. So that's even less money that you're taking home. And I thought that was very good to break that down. I think a lot of people have a misconception about what it's like to live in Hollywood.
That's just part of it. I'm going to stop it there to comment on a couple of things. So obviously what's going on here is the industry at large made this decision, and I feel it's been pretty obvious now for a few months and years now that we can qualify it as a brash decision to just stop everything and move as quickly as possible into streaming, only to find out once everyone had already moved over there, there's no money. Oops. There's no money. We're losing money on streaming. What the fuck? And it's this is what I had said earlier about, executives being dumb as shit. Which is hey, morons, you yourselves said that for the first few years, streaming was not going to be profitable. So why is it that we're here and everyone's so surprised? What's going on? Well, it turns out they don't like losing money. Well, obviously. But what changed here? Well, I feel like what everybody forgot was that it wasn't going to be profitable for a long time. But because they forgot, the studios and companies just went ahead and put all of what they had into streaming. That was a monumental mistake.
Mm-hmm. Wait, quick question. Is Hulu also having trouble? I'm just kind of curious because Hulu has ads on them and all that, and I'm guessing a bunch of companies pay them to do that. And so I'm just kind of curious. Do you know?
Well, it's the thing. Look, I feel like we need to make a bit of a differentiation here. It's like, it's not as if the streaming services themselves are not, quote unquote, making money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as if they're not generating income. It's more so they're not generating income fast enough to offset the costs that the studios themselves take to keep them up and running in the first place. So it's not creating any kind of profit, which means it's not worth it for them. That's just, it is what it is, just to start off with. That's not even getting into all the other money they put in to finance the shows, which can be quite costly. So costly that they may cost as much, if not more, than a small budget movie would. I mean, remember a few months back, it was, I believe it was Randolph herself was quoting some kind of source that had said that Falcon and Winter Soldier cost something like $40 million, $45 million for just the first 2 episodes. Like, if they're spending that kind of money for 2 episodes of a TV show, no wonder they're in the red.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I can't speak to how Hulu is doing themselves. I want to say that they don't have a lot necessarily to work with when it comes to big budget, shows like a Mandalorian or a House of the Dragon. So I don't think they're one of the ones that are worse off. I think they're doing pretty well, all things considered. But it's more so that streaming as a concept across the board for anyone and everyone that does own a streaming service, the profits are not there. That's why in the last few weeks and months, there's been kind of this retreat back to the traditional verticals, like the theatrical release model. That's why you even saw just as recently as a few weeks back that Bob Iger, of all people, was considering taking another look about physical media releases.
Mm-hmm.
And lest we forget, Bob Iger is as much to blame for this whole mess as anyone else is. Bob Iger has been praised endlessly for a lot of things that he's contributed. And you can make the argument, maybe rightfully so. But for as much success as he's had, I think that's not enough is being made about how he was the one that took the first, it wasn't so much as like dipping his toe in the water. Like, no, he jumped in the water and everybody else followed, chasing this streaming cash cow. Well, what they thought would be a cash cow, basically. They all really bought in hook, line, and sinker that this would be the thing that would almost immediately and instantaneously replace the theatrical model and all their other traditional outlets as their main source of profits. And maybe one day that will happen. But today is not that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why everyone across the board is, grinding their budgets of, the budget of their streaming services to a halt. And they're taking another look. That's why you saw in the last few weeks, Disney Plus basically cancel all their shows. That's why you're seeing a high-profile analyst write a think piece this week that is advising Paramount shut down Paramount Plus because it's just not worth it competing for 5th place, and instead license out all of their programming to other streamers, like how Sony is doing. Sony has no streaming service, but you can make the argument that they themselves have been the ones that have escaped this kind of pickle everybody else is in, because they recognized very early on, yeah, we don't got the firepower to headline a streaming service, so what we're going to do is we're just going to license out our stuff and make more money, more easy and fast money that way. For example, why is it that you see right now Spider-Man movies on Disney Plus? That's why. Because Sony decided to license out their material. And so Paramount might be looking at things and thinking they just might pull out as well, which is just a stunning reversal of the last few years. which in and of itself is, a big industry change. Now, how does it pertain to the writers? Well, because everybody moved to streaming, particularly for television writers, it's really hard to gauge, how much they're going to be owed when the whole model's been changed. Before, writers were mostly paid and were able to gauge their worth through television ratings, and were able to secure residual checks for the rest of their lives through syndication rights, or other cable networks would just play their shows over and over and over again on reruns. That no longer exists when more people are watching content on streaming, where you could just watch it whenever you want. There's no such thing as a rerun when it's just there whenever you want to see it. And when less people are watching TV, the less value there is in that. And then, of course, the big thing is here, because of that whole, industry change, that whole disruption to it, those writers are not getting those residual checks anymore. They're not getting that. And that's a big change. And of course, they're pissed off. And that's why they're asking to see how the rating numbers, the real rating numbers of these shows on streaming. That way they can have some kind of model to see what they're owed. But as Randolph was just saying there, even that's not an apples to apples comparison, because it's not like when the shows, let's say like a Seinfeld or a Big Bang Theory, when they had big ratings on television, well, yeah, that meant big money because you had advertisers in those commercials that obviously were helping to finance those shows and help, up the value and worth of those shows. With streaming, you don't get that same return. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily at all. Like, you're throwing away $10 million on an episode of The Mandalorian. So what, 8 times, like, that's $80 million per season of The Mandalorian. You might get a lot of subscribers, but you're not getting that money back. That's what we've been saying for years now. That's what we said about the movies themselves. Like, you can't throw a big budgeted film like Avatar or Top Gun on streaming and think that's going to rake in the cash the way they did for those individual distributors in the theatrical release window. So that's just one aspect of this that the writers and the studios cannot come to an agreement. Here's another, and then of course, she actually listed out all the, an average writer, what they would get, and how clearly that's not a living wage for them any longer. So of course, there's an impetus to get an increase because of that. And then here's more.
You can say duration of employment. They're arguing that you must keep half of the, this is very crucial here, half of the minimum staff must be employed through production. Sure, that's expensive, but what if you want some rewrites? And again, you're training staff to eventually be showrunners. I think this is probably one of the reasons that Disney Plus shows are so bad. They're hiring all these inexperienced people.
I just put that in there as like, oh, so that's why Disney Plus shows are so bad. This whole rewriting situation, we're going to get into it just right now, how this is going to affect everybody, but think for a second about what studio is going to be hit the hardest when all they do is rewrite on a 24-hour basis.
Then here's a big one. This is also a big one. Artificial intelligence. This is crucial. You see it there in the middle? They say you have to regulate use of artificial intelligence on, I'm not quite sure what MBA stands for, covered projects. AI, this is crucial. AI can't write or rewrite literary material. How would you feel? Isn't that fascinating? How would you feel if AI rewrote your script? That would be just, I think, so horrible. All right, and can't be used as source material. And I guess this material can't be used. Oh, this is brilliant. You can't use our writing to train AI to write like us. Whoever came up with that is brilliant. That's very crucial. That's very, very important. Don't feed my... minimum basic agreement. Thank you, Mika. Don't feed my scripts into the machine, man. Don't feed my scripts into the machine. So I think that's really smart.
That's the other big issue here is AI. Mm-hmm. And the studios are not... They're so brazen. It's been reported already that They're not waiting around. They're already doing it. They're already using AI. That's the end game, man. They want to replace their labor force with artificial intelligence. Again, it's just a cabal of idiots up there thinking that they're going to be able to just manufacture crap with AI written scripts and think that they're going to get away with it and think that people are not going to see the difference in the quality of it. There is nothing more important to the filmmaking process than the writing.
Mm-hmm.
All of the films that we have such deep issues with start with the writing. And the idea that the studios themselves are welcoming this kind of hatred. Are you sure you want to be on their side, man? I don't think so. No, I don't think this is going to end well for anybody if they get their way. So this has been going on for a week, and just, going off of these kind of conditions, it seems quite likely this will last for a very long time. Months even. And there's a high likelihood this may also trigger the directors and the producers to strike as well. And if that happens, that's as close to a complete shutdown of Hollywood as there ever would be.
Can you imagine? Oh my God.
I mean, everything would just stop to a grinding halt. But keep in mind, in some ways, there already are being stopped to a grinding halt. Not in all circumstances, but in a way, just in a week's worth of striking. The ramifications for what this means to all of the projects in development are endless. Right now, some shows are being obligated to continue going on. For example, there are shows like House of the Dragon and Andor that are continuing filming right now because, quote unquote, their scripts are finished. As if there's no such thing as a rewrite.
As if there's a rewrite, and also things can happen, things can switch on set like that,
Yeah.
Even just someone forgetting a memory card or a battery, it'll halt production. And then whatever scene you were filming, it could have been a 5-minute dialogue from a character. That's got to be shortened now because someone fucking forgot something and they had to halt production, And so now you got to figure out, okay, how can we, we're running out of time on this set. How can we shorten the dialogue real quick, but also make it fit to what we were trying to say and all that? Things can happen at any moment and you're going to have to rewrite shit.
A lot of times people would be surprised that so much of what was established in the screenplay can so easily be tossed aside when they realize they're on set and it's oh shit, this isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you do when there are no writers on set?
Even just the way an actor is delivering a line, that'll affect the next scene. Because then they'll go, oh, okay, he said it this actually happens in cable shows, those 22 episode run shows where they'll write, first 7 episodes or something, and then that gets filmed and then it gets aired, and they still got to write, the last 15, the last 5 episodes, or no, write the next 7 episodes. And the writers, they're looking at the final cut of it on television, and they go, oh, that's how they delivered it? And that's why you always see in shows with long running series a difference between the pilot episode and the first episode of the second season. Because for one thing, all the actors, they finally understand the characters, how they're supposed to portray them. But also the writers, though, they understand how the actors are portraying the characters that they wrote. And so it just massive rewrites happen in a dime,
Um, it's really unpredictable. What could happen on set can change everything going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that you wouldn't allow for rewrites is also just so disingenuous. When this industry depends on rewrites, when they depend, where do you think reshoots come from? Where do you think they get the ideas to change what they know is going wrong? They get that through rewrites. Hey, Disney, you should know that more than anybody. How many of your big budgeted projects have had to need reshoots because of rewrites? Hey, Marvel, by the way, how the fuck are you going to make a single movie going forward when all you do is rewrite everything every day?
Also, this is the reason why directors who write their own movies work with the same actors. Okay.
I wonder who you're talking about there, David.
You know, could be a number of directors who work with the same fucking actors.
Because there are.
Yeah.
Because there just are. There's not just one. There are many who do that. It's kind of an industry standard.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes the most sense, right? But like for real, I mean, if there's any good that comes out of it, is like, holy shit. This, alongside the disastrous performance of the recent Marvel films from a quality and box office standpoint, really kind of like, it's like gripping Kevin Feige's balls in a vice. Because what does he do? If you are Kevin Feige and you're so used to doing things the way that you are, how does this not force you to reevaluate? Like, dude, right now it's just disastrous for him. The recent Ant-Man film bombed horribly. It bombed so hard, it created a stink that at this very moment in time inhibited Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3's opening weekend performance. It opened this weekend to 150 million, stateside, but like, this is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This should have done 150, 160, 170, easy. It should have been in that range. Maybe, in the best of circumstances, even more so. How is it that Guardians does a little bit better than Ant-Man 3? Because that film stunk up the place so bad. It caused Victoria Alonso to be fired. It hurt the performance of Guardians 3. Jonathan Major's career blew up. There's that going on right now. All the while, all of your upcoming projects are in this like rotational pattern of continuously needing to be reshot and rewritten because you're not happy with what you did in the first place. But what do you do now? What happens to, unless they finish those rewrites of the Marvels and they're just going to finish the reshooting of it, but like what happens to Captain America 4 now when we're rewriting it? What happens to Blade is shut down? And you know what? There's a good chance that movie never gets made at this point, with the fact that that film has been rewritten so many times. Mahershala Ali has been pissed off this entire, through this whole process. There's a good chance, you know what? Mahershala walks away, says, fuck you, I'm out of here. Because you were so inept to even get a freaking Blade movie made.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens, you can make the argument that this strike is going to affect, a studio not more so than Marvel Studios, who are the king of rewrites, who depend on rewrites on a daily basis just to operate. What a disaster. What a disaster of a year it has been for Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine things getting much worse than this? Because things are already...
It already is getting worse. I mean...
We're going to get to that in a bit, but it's like... yeah, man, it's a lot. And I do want to take this moment to shout out the Duffer Brothers for being one of the few people to come out and acknowledge that it doesn't make any sense moving forward, and so they basically halted production of Stranger Things 5 until this whole dispute is behind them. Because you know what? That makes the most amount of sense. And also, it's just common sense. At the end of the day, all this is just common sense. I see here, writing, this is what the Duffer Brothers said, writing does not stop when filming begins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just what the writers, again, I think it's the end of June when the contracts come up for renegotiation again for directors and producers. If they also strike, holy shit. I mean, again, if people who are not aware of like how much damage this could do to the projects that are just like risking going forward, look at the situation of Quantum of Solace. That's the second James Bond film where they had Daniel Craig doing rewrites. I mean, Jesus. So, yeah. Good luck. Good luck, but I mean, to the people who are being obligated to continue working as a directive from the studios. Again, I doubt the creatives themselves are comfortable with this, but they're being forced to do so. That's a whole thing. David, do you have anything else to add or offer to this whole situation?
I know I didn't say much, but I mean, honestly, like when it comes to like the numbers of how much they're getting paid or what the studios are, how much money they're losing and all that, like I can't really say much about that. Like all I can really say though is just, I mean, what you were saying too is just your writers are the most important things, people in your business here. Okay, without them, you don't have a movie. So just I don't understand why you can't give them just, and they want, I mean, I don't know how much they're asking, but like for the most part though, they're asking for a living wage. They don't want to go, hey, I gotta quit this industry and work a 9 to 5. You know, like that's I mean, again, that's all I can think of that they're probably asking for. And so,
but they're also specifically asking about how studios are kind of thinking of using AI to replace them eventually.
That's gonna be stupid. You can't. No, you gonna. There needs to be a person writing this because, in a sense, that is how your actors can work with them, you know, in the sense to understand what kind of story they're trying to tell. You need a writer just for them to tell them, like, this is the story that I want to tell, by the way. You know, they can't, your actors themselves, they can't just like read it and kind of go, oh, I think I know how to like deliver this or something. Like, no, there needs to be someone there going like, this is the story and this is how your character is going to progress. And you can't really, you need a person to do that. You can't rely on AI. And so, yeah, just, I don't work in the industry, but even I don't understand how studios just don't see that, you know? I understand paying your actors like a shit ton of money because it's not just them acting, they're doing their own stunts or some kind of, and all that. They're also you're also paying them to promote the movie and all that. You're not doing that with the writers. And so, I don't know how exactly it works in the industry, how writers work.
But it also comes down to just, I feel people need to question the society that we have built for us. And I would say deeply question why it is that certain industries, you know, offer more and are paid more than others. You know, it comes down to a fundamental question of like, why is it that the writers are paid among the least when it comes to a particular project's success? Why is it that executives or producers and even actors, why do they rake in more for the success of an individual project when none of them, by and large, contributed to the writing of it?
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is why I say this is not just particular to this industry. You can ask that same question all the way around. So what Peter said to me this weekend, why do we ask so much of nurses? Why do we ask them, why are the standards so high to be a nurse, and yet the standards are so low? And the standards are so low to be a police officer. Why is it that an NFL football player is paid individually millions of dollars a year, and yet your average school teacher can't even get a check that's close to $60,000 a year? When the teacher is actively doing more good for a society than an NFL football player. Why is this the society that we have allowed and convinced ourselves is the best place to live? You know, I just would strongly encourage people to question, you know, why it is that things are the way they are. And unfortunately, too many people look to, you know, otherize minorities and blame them for everything as a way to either get their kicks or to get their frustrations out, which is literally what Hitler did. That's just like Nazism 101. It's just blame the other for all of the real systematic and economic problems that exist in a society. That's the playbook. Just blame the brown guy. Or blame the woman. Or blame the trans people. Okay. To be clear, that's not what I'm asking people to do. I'm saying that people who do that, you're such a waste. Like, reevaluate who it is you're blaming. Because there are real forces of evil out there that need to be, let's be real, just taken action to. But they revel in the fact that we're constantly so divided in these social issues that we can't ever see the real evil that's out there. And that is corporate entities that are leeching all of us dry and are causing this planet to be even less inhabitable. Anywho, that concludes Woke Politics, the podcast. No, I'm kidding. Although I'm sure people who are listening would be like, why are you talking about politics? You are an idiot. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the movie of the week. David, I feel like I've spoken too much. I actually want to just go ahead and get it from you for a change. I'd like for you to set up this discussion here. And this, obviously, before we even get into a movie, it helps to really kind of recap how on this show we've been covering Marvel and how we have felt about Marvel lately. Mm-hmm. And how that all of it has been in our head in the lead up to this film.
I mean, basically, we've been disappointed in some of the Marvel movies recently. And the only little hope that we had was James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We knew he was just going to give something different from the rest of them and all that. And we knew that he was going to be given something different because of what happened to him a couple of years ago. Just a quick recap. He got fired because of some tweets or something. Then the studios realized, oh, we fucked up. He already apologized for these. And they rehired him. But in that little snippet of time, James Gunn got hired by Warner Brothers to make the Suicide Squad, and then he made Peacemaker, and then he got hired to make the Suicide Squad. Then he got rehired by Disney, but he was like, "I'm gonna finish Suicide Squad first, so wait." And then during that time, he was able to make Guardians 3, but he also became head of the DC movies at Warner Brothers and all that. And us here at Red Spotlight are very excited about that. I mean, we all loved Guardians 1 and 2. We think he's a great director, a great writer, so we're really looking forward to that. Coming into Guardians 3, though, a lot of people were not excited. Mostly the Snyder fans. They keep bashing his work for some reason, saying that he's not as good as director people say he is. First of all, we don't praise James Gunn as much as Snyder fans praise Snyder. I don't know if you've ever seen posts about that. Like, he's just, like, they legit see him as the greatest director of all time. We don't think that at all. We think he's a great director, but we just know his style, and we're looking forward to that style, and that's really it. Okay, we were looking forward to the jokes that he's gonna make in this movie. We're looking to the characters that he's made and how he's gonna end it. That's just what we're looking forward to. But yeah, and I mean, just the anticipation of this has been great because of how the Marvel movies have been doing in the box office this past year, couple of years. We were worried that James Gunn is just not going to get the chance that he should in the box office. You know, I feel like I picked that up.
That's a very good, succinct way of, putting all the things that have happened in the last few years. Again, Mike Cernovich, we have to actually thank Mike Cernovich, who this would not be possible without him. I think this right-wing idiot, Mike Cernovich, that put those tweets out there with the hopes that he would get fired. By the way, the reason why Mike Cernovich did this, if you don't remember, was because James Gunn was critical of Donald Trump, who is a piece of shit, by the way. In case anybody forgot, right now, he currently had a deposition video released because he's, again, being sued for rape. Just putting that out there again. But, again, Mike Cernovich did not like the fact that James Gunn was critical of Donald Trump, and so he unearthed these old tweets that many accused to be pedophilic in nature. I feel all of us are in agreement that they weren't funny at all, but they kind of were taken very much over, not just out of context, but they were very much... It was an extremity in terms of how Disney handled that situation. And I'm glad that even though they rehired him, and rightfully so, they're paying for their mistakes. The fact that Warner Brothers scooped them up so quickly, and they were almost immediately paying off in that with an amazing Suicide Squad film that all of us loved, followed up with an incredible show, Peacemaker, which more people should honestly talk about, which I think it's a crime that more people don't see the show. But then just those two in and of itself was enough to get Gunn into the good graces to be the head of DC Studios films. And we've already gone at length about how we feel his sensibilities for what truly makes a great story in the blockbuster genre are exactly what DC has needed, and quite frankly, what Marvel has been missing for quite some time now. And the Marvel films have been all kinds of abysmal, generic, blah. Some have been all right, some have been pretty good. But for the most part, this is a studio that is kind of running on fumes. And they have refused fundamentally to change how they make movies. And so we are now in a position here, and I know you mentioned all... the Snyder people, and James Gunn, for whatever reason, is seen recently as this controversial presence because he's on social media and he engages with some of the fans, and the fans are, I would say, the Snyder fans and a lot of DC fans, mostly, if we're going to be blunt, about this whole situation are going after him because he dismissed Henry Cavill from being involved in his new DC universe as the next Superman. All the while, of course, James Gunn is writing and directing a Superman film that is not going to feature Henry Cavill. I say rightfully so, but a lot of people would come at me and burn me at the stake for saying that. Too fucking bad, honestly. But I mean, we're here telling it like it is, honestly, and that's not thinking without thought. That's literally just saying the situation for what it is, and that is these people are unhinged, they are deranged, and they have no interest in, engaging in a good faith discussion and back and forth. They're pissed off that James Gunn is not inviting Henry Cavill to come back, and so they've declared war on him, and that's just the way that it is. But with all of that happening, we're now in a position where we're now going to review a Marvel Studios film that instantaneously has all of the things that all of their recent films had been missing, all in one. And it turns out what they were missing was a director. That may sound like hyperbole, but I'm being completely serious here. What they were missing was a director who can direct, who is a visionary, who is not just going to sit back and let Victoria Alonso or Kevin Feige or whoever else take the reins and make this into the same thing they make everything else into. We knew trust in James Gunn. Guardians 1, Guardians 2, The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, The Holiday Special have all led to where we are right now with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It honestly, to me, did not matter how good the trailers were or not. The idea that I wouldn't have the faith in Gunn to deliver an amazing movie is nonsensical. And here we are about to talk about a film that, in my view, blew me the fuck away. Blew me the fuck away. He is immensely talented and has, I would say, the special sauce that makes specifically comic book blockbusters work. He knows what it takes to make these stories feel real and genuine. He knows that they require a sense of grounded stakes, a care for characters, and genuine emotion baked into everything. Everything that Gunn has done has led him to this moment. And we are now gonna get into this. What is this movie about? Well, here is from Letterboxd. Once more with feeling. Peter Quill, still reeling from the loss of Gamora, must rally his team around him to defend the universe along with protecting one of their own. A mission that, if not completed successfully, could quite possibly lead to the end of the Guardians as we know them. It's not the most descriptive of what the movie actually is about, but let me just tell you this. Guardians 1 and 2 have always been top 5, top 3 Marvel for, I would say, pretty apparent reasons. There are a lot of people who generally dismiss the accomplishments of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We have long said, all of us on this podcast, that arguably, up until this point anyway, Volume 2 was the best Marvel film. And if you'd like more context on that, I want to say that David and I, in the last few years, did an audio commentary on this film quite recently, so go back and listen to it on our channel, because I feel like we really go and dive into why we love that movie so much. Look, that film is not, heavy when it comes to plot, and rightfully so. I mean, again, I come at it from the approach that one of the least interesting things in a movie is plot. When I'm more interested in spending time with characters. When I'm more interested in seeing, what they go through. And Gunn seems to get that quite a lot in his movies. Because I mean, I don't even want to start this conversation coming at it like from all the things that this movie did that were better than Marvel. I feel like that's kind of like baked into it. I think we already knew that was going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's more to me, I can just describe to you what the experience felt like. Having seen this 3 times now. And we'll see it many more times. Peter often says that some of the best experiences is, and particularly when it comes to blockbuster films, when the film opens and immediately you have a sigh of relief and you just sit back and you know, boy, this is going to be good. We knew, because we know Gunn, that this is going to be good. But when I tell you that the opening moments of the movie, or that whole opening sequence, where we're all being like brilliantly reintroduced to the Guardians and their new headquarters in nowhere, but what was happening there is our main character here, Rocket Raccoon, singing an acoustic version of Creep. Again, which perfectly encapsulates where this guy is right now in this series and communicates to us what's on his mind. And immediately, man, the song and him walking around, immediately I'm just emotional. Immediately I'm just, wow, that's perfect. That's perfect. And you tell me, because I know there was a moment there where he was like, I guess like sniffling or something, and he himself found to be a bit emotional, Rocket anyway. But again, the film starts off with a flashback as to how he was before he was, operated on to what he is now. And then a flash forward. I love that transition of seeing him as a baby raccoon and then all the way to where he is right now. And then the song cues in. And we are going to be talking about all of our favorite moments in this movie. And again, at this point going forward, you should be aware that there are going to be some spoilers here. Just as something of an anecdotal observation here, it had been quite some time since all of us made the decision to see a Marvel film opening night, and all of us did.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a question. Wasn't it? We just went and did it because you know what? More than this being a Marvel film, this was the culmination of a series that all of us have been engaged with, invested in for all this time, for 9 years now. This was a very euphoric experience for me. This was a very emotional experience for me. I never want to be the kind of person that, says a movie is perfect. I usually operate under the circumstance, under the pretense that no movie can be perfect, But I was so swept away with the film in just about everything that it did. And it continued to prove, for me anyway, that being the case with every subsequent viewing of the movie. There were times where I would just be blown away by something as simple as the perfection of the precise moment to cue the needle drop with what was being visually presented to us on the screen. And I'm like, I'm just wowed with how great what I'm being shown on screen is. Let alone, again, I'm just trying to capture to you guys or communicate to you guys like what it felt like watching this, more so than just like, okay, listing off a checklist of things that this film is great at. The film is basically great at everything. It's great at everything you can think of. Granted, there have been people out there, to be fair to them, that have not given the film the best response. Personally, for me, I kind of chalk it up to how well or not you vibe with Gunn's style. Personally, I think that everything that I saw in Guardians 3 is what Gunn does to a T. The idea that people would be like surprised about what was in here. Well, I would say surprising for a Marvel movie. There's a lot of things in here that are quite surprising that were allowed to be in here. But then again, if you see the Suicide Squad, well, again, that was Gunn completely untamed, for sure. I loved the film inside and out the first time around. And by the time I saw it, last night, I actually went to go see it with Kyle in IMAX. This movie just captured my heart. I love it completely. It is hard to see how anything, now, granted, there's a lot more to come out this year, but it is hard to see how anything holds up to the standard that has here. Now, I'm not here saying that, like, Gunn has created the best movie ever made. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am telling you is everything in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is why I love blockbuster films and why I love superhero films. And I would say that a lot of people who work in those particular genres today have a lot to learn from James Gunn. Because it is just so effortless, honestly, how damn near incredible he was able to make this. And it also, I say, more so than the other movies, exhibits his true talents as a writer to be able to really bring everything to a conclusion in the best of circumstances, sure, but lest we forget, one of his main characters was killed off in a side movie. And yet somehow he had to write himself away from that and also give a sense of closure for not only that character, but that character's relationship with one of the other characters in particular. The film is a feat. The film is, honestly, to me, the bar that blockbuster and comic book films should strive to meet. And there's been a lot of conversation about this being the best since Endgame. To me, I'm operating on a very different question altogether. There's a very real possibility this is the best movie Marvel will ever make. Past and present and future. So those are very, very high marks, high praises I just gave this movie. Just genuinely at a loss for how this could have been any better. And those are my initial thoughts of Volume 3, David.
Yeah. For me, I'll probably give like some minor complaints as we go into the spoiler part of it and all that. But I mean,
we already are. We're kind of in there if you want to get into it. But I mean, after you say your observations.
Yeah. But I mean, overall though, like this movie was, not exactly but it's pretty much what I thought it would be. Right off the bat, you see, Rocket, how he came to be and all that, and you're following him throughout the beginning of the movie and all that, and then you right away, okay, yeah, Rocket's the main character here, basically, and we're gonna see, like, I guess, an ending to his arc. I think, like, to me, like a perfect ending to his arc right away, which I knew right away what that was gonna happen, and I think it was just the most surprising parts were the rest of the characters, because I really had no idea what he was going to do with them, were any of them going to die, when he was going to leave the Guardians group and all that. I mean, I don't know, but it makes perfect sense where he left all of them off. And I loved how he did it. And yeah, I need to rewatch it. because there's still some things that just like need to sink in for me on some stuff. Just kind of like the pacing of it and all that. Like I kind of want to know if maybe some things could have been longer or something. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. My thoughts and feelings of it aren't really like honed in like yours is, and all that. But overall, I sent a text saying like this is a great trilogy. James Gunn made a great trilogy here, and yeah, just and for sure this is something that the Marvel Studios need to work on. That just you gotta get someone with an idea of what they want to do here. Come on, just give someone the reins. Give your director and whoever your writer is the reins on this, and don't fucking interfere. Even though there was like interference per se in this movie with Gamora's character and all that, and with what was it? What's his name? Warlock. Well, Warlock is my one complaint in the movie. I feel like he could have done more with him and all that. But overall, though, it was still fun with what he did with him.
I could definitely understand with the whole Warlock situation. Personally, to me, I don't care one way or the other. So, like, I'm perfectly happy with what we got out of him. I thought Will Poulter was great. I thought he looked amazing. And as far as an opening sequence is concerned, holy shit.
Yeah.
That was an incredible action sequence. And, I mean, kicking the Guardians' ass for a minute there, So that in and of itself was truly a spectacle to see for sure. Look, everything with Rocket I thought was great. I loved the backstory, and I understand people being disturbed and unsettled. That's kind of the point, guys. This is supposed to... That's how it's supposed to make you feel. The origins of this creature are horrific.
No, yeah. It just...
Absolutely horrific and gut-wrenching. Even from the get-go, it makes you feel uncomfortable. One of the things in this film I'm never going to forget was the sequence where he's first operated on. He gets thrown in the cage with his friends, and then they speak to him, and very clearly, his very first word ever was hurts, which was the procedure that they did to him. A lot of what happens with those four in particular is very hard to swallow.
Yeah. I saw the clip before the movie came out of when they came up with their names.
Oh, you saw that one? Oh.
Yeah, and right away I was like, I need to watch this movie because I need to know what's going to happen with the bunny. Yeah, when you saw their ending, it sucked. It
was horrible. It was horrible. Just again, conceptually, you feel so bad that these creatures were so genetically messed with that they look and are the way that they are, but it's also kind of, there's a beauty to it too. For as unsettling as Floors or Teeths and Lila may look like, with their modifications, as creatures, the idea that they, with the ability of thought and the ability to communicate verbally and the intelligence that they were given, the idea that those three creatures were able to exhibit such humanity and love, the fact that they had the capacity for love, I mean, the circumstances for which they were birthed and made were horrific. But that is the folly of the High Evolutionary is he missed all along what it was that he was looking for. The bond that Lila, Teeths, Floor, and Rocket had, that was what he... Well, I shouldn't say that's what he was looking for. Clearly, he didn't quite know himself what he was looking for. And clearly he hated a whole bunch of everything. But he was so guided by hatred that he couldn't see what he had in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
That even somebody as so cruel and evil as him could produce something as genuine and kind and loving as those creatures. But you're right, all those scenes with them were like, I feel like every single scene that involved them was a tearjerker for me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially knowing where they're gonna go with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know where it's gonna go, because these guys ain't around.
Yeah.
And they're not mentioned in the other films.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a sneaking suspicion. Also, you know all too well the capacity for cruelty that a psychopathic maniac like the High Evolutionary would be capable of. That was just not in the cards at all for their new world. And even if they did get to their new world, look what happened to it at the end. The cruelty, the downright evil.
Yeah.
That creature, I'm sorry, that character exhibited. I don't know if it can really be compared to on any other level with any other villain we've seen from Marvel.
No, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think for sure he's one of the most intimidating villains that we've ever had. I think maybe below Thanos or something. I don't know. But yeah, just the fact that he was able to do all those things with all those animals and all that, that's already fucked up. But the fact that he just just without any thought, literally blew up a planet and was like, okay, I'm done with these people.
That wasn't the first time, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't the first one. It had Warlock not really stepped in, it probably wouldn't have been the last.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, it's insane. And I love that we didn't get that much information about him. You know, I think the best line of his was when his scientists were telling him to stop, can we stop this? You're destroying everything just to catch this one creature and all that. And then one of them says, for God's sakes, stop. And he goes, God's not here. That's why I stepped in.
There is no God. That's why I stepped in. And then the whole room is brought to this silence.
Yeah. I love that line though. It's just it says so much about him. You can think of so many things about him from that line, as to what the heck happened to him. You know?
Yeah, and of course, to say nothing of Chukwudi Iwaji's performance.
Mm-hmm.
That actor, holy crap, did he turn in a hell of a performance. And of course, then in lies just his whole appearance. Honestly, it didn't even click for me until way later into the movie that was a mask he had on.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't click for me until after I saw Rocket basically maim him, that then I began to notice the sides of his face, hey, is this a mask?
Mm-hmm.
And then the reveal of that, ooh, that was great.
They look bad.
I'm surprised that's in a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that his face looked like with all the animals and all that. It was there was a lot of things surprising. There was a lot of surprising things.
The way that Lila, Floor, and Teebs were executed.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that scene itself that you mentioned initially, when they were all talking about I guess when they get their names and what they want to do. I think having seen this 3 times, the part of it that always brought me to tears was seeing young Rocket talk about all the things that he would do later in life with his friends and fly away together and do incredible things. And then that ended up being the case. Then, of course, the bittersweet feeling of it, it wouldn't be with the ones that he thought he would fly with. At least certainly not yet. But then, of course, how all his other friends, the Guardians themselves, how much they love Rocket and all, I mean, all the moments. I mean, this whole film was for him. All the actions in this film were for him, and their refusal to let him go. But I mean, he was in a dire spot. Like, every time they cut away to him, you know, with the oxygen mask on him, he was dying. He was looking bad. But Gunn, as he usually does, he gets me. And I was kind of low-key convinced that sequence where he meets, you know, his friends in some kind of like afterlife and he's about to be welcomed by them, it very much plays for a while there. Like, that's it. He flatlines. He's got his friends back. You know, Quill's crying, which, by the way, what a tremendous performance by Chris Pratt here.
Yeah, no, everyone did a fantastic job in terms of emotion, comedy, and everything. Like, they all fucking
Bautista, Karen Gillan, Palm Clementif, who plays Mantis. Literally, the whole cast did an outstanding job, as they usually do here. But holy crap. I mean, I understand. I don't know if you feel this way, but I didn't get a sense of tonal clash. Because I think that the actors played both sides of it very well. And the audiences that I've been a part of have responded to them greatly.
No, yeah, I never sense a tonal clash. My one complaint, though, is there was too many times where they made you think that a character was going to die. I never thought Rocket was going to die. Like I said, I knew he was like the main character in all this. I mentioned this. I can't remember, I'm pretty sure I did it in the audio commentary, but another podcast too. But the reason why James Gunn wrote these movies is because of Rocket. Like he loved the idea of like someone being forced into this, like being experimented on, and that's why he is the way he is. And so I knew for a while that he was eventually going to become the leader of the Guardians. You know, I didn't know how, and I liked the way they did it. But yeah, and so with the rest of the characters, you know, even in the beginning when Warlock was like beating the shit out of Drax, and, you know, he's like literally on the floor, he's bleeding out. I never thought they were going to die, so I didn't like those scenes where they made us think that, oh, this could be the last moment here, and I'm like, I think that's just my one complaint, especially, and so that kind of stuff didn't really work when there was like a big long joke going on. You know, I still didn't find it tonally off or anything like that. Like, it wasn't like a whiplash moment of like, ha ha ha, oh, what the fuck, they're about to die. It's like I never felt like that. But I just didn't like the fact that he tried to trick us into thinking that they were about to die, especially with Peter Quill in the very end when he made the jump into the other spaceship. I especially didn't like it when his face got puffy and you're like, is this how he's really gonna die? Like, he just forgot his iPod, whatever it was, and I'm like, his Zune, yeah. And so, yeah, that was another complaint with me.
Any other issues?
No, I think it's just that, and with Warlock, like I said, we could have used some more. I think his transition to becoming the good guy could have been better. Just, I think maybe like a little more dialogue between him and one of the other Guardians would have been better to kind of really characterize him more. Like, they're saying that he's supposed to be a baby because he was just barely born, but I would have liked to have seen that, you know, with the other. I would have liked the other characters to know that, because be like, oh, you really have no idea what's going on here, or like something like that, you know, or like really treat him as like a child, especially in that moment where Quill and Gamora were in the ship and he kind of like crashed into them. Instead of crashing into them, kind of like a little conversation, actually have those two treat him as like their child for like a second, you know. I think that would have been really cool.
I really enjoyed a lot here with Nebula and Mantis. I think in their own ways, they were both standouts. They had standout moments, not just in their interactions with each other, but then also as far as action is concerned, both of those two characters were just badasses in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
And then also emotional powerhouses as well.
Mm-hmm.
All of the needle drops were great. To me, some of my favorite sequences include, you know what? I actually really liked the finale. The dog days are over.
Oh my gosh! Oh, can we leave that for last? Actually, just because.
Yeah.
Just because I love that moment.
Sure. I mean, look. I don't know. For me, it's like there's a lot we can say about all of the characters and the story, and therefore, but like, I don't know. There's very little for me that didn't work. I mean, Gamora. Now that's kind of a interesting one, right? Because that's a situation where you have a different version of Gamora, and you had to really kind of tell a different story there, you know. And I think in a way, what really did make it work was that Quill was able to learn to let things go. Now, he wouldn't let it go, obviously, to save Rocket's life. He refused to do that again. But as far as Gamora, as far as what I can see there is, you know, those two do have a spark. Any version of Gamora and Quill are going to have a spark. And I think throughout the course of the adventure, she sees for herself why a version of her would like him, because she starts to like him too. But at the same time, she's not the same person. And throughout the whole film, Peter has to kind of learn that. Yeah. That it looks like her. There's a lot of similarities to his Gamora, but it's not fair for him to put all that on her. Yeah. And to expect that out of her. And throughout the whole arc of the film, they kind of arrive at this place of acceptance that this is the way that it is. And in their own way, they both mourn what they used to be, but doesn't necessarily close the door forever on what could be. Because as they go their separate ways, you never know where it could go. And she very much, at the end there, seemed just a slight bit of conflicted there about why is this a little harder to walk away from than it was at the very beginning of it. And it's because her time with the Guardians, she found out who they are. More so than, it's just the people that my sister hangs out with. No, they're a family. They're a bunch of really nice guys too. And that final sequence where like they're both looking away from each other, and you know, she says to him, "I bet we were fun." And then you see him when he says that, like you wouldn't believe. And then they walk away. Yeah, I still miss the old Gamora. But I mean, that's just that comes with the nature of what happened for sure. But considering that all of the circumstances that led Gunn to work with this version of Gamora, I was kind of satisfied for the most part of it. I mean, to me, the way that I would, I know that I was talking to Kyle about it, but the way that it kind of reminded me was like, not to this degree, because there is a bit of a difference there, but it kind of reminded me of how, and you know this, we left things off with May and Coulson at the end of the show, of the series S.H.I.E.L.D., where, you know, they end things on friendly terms, but they both used to be involved with each other. But it's kind of the inverse there. Like from May's perspective, her Coulson died. And then there's this new Coulson. And then this Coulson doesn't necessarily want to hurt Melinda again. And she herself doesn't want to go through that again. you know? And then they kind of leave things off in the finale where, like, they're not a couple, but they're very much friends. But then again, there exists the, you know, the slightest, the possibility that there's the slightest bit of open doors where that could happen, where, you know, when she says to him, I could always use, you know, somebody like you helping out with the class and everything. And at least because she's a teacher there at the end. So it kind of reminded me like that, where it's like, yeah, there is the sense of loss of what they could have been or what they were that no longer is, as far as their relationship is concerned. That reminded me of that. But your thoughts on that situation?
No, I mean, I love the fact that part of Quill's story was that he had to let go of the fact that this isn't his Gamora and all that. But I also love that Mantis was pushing the fact, like, you kind of rely too much on women. And I think you should take some time to be on your own and all that. And I think that's just like a great lesson for people, that you really shouldn't rely on others to like give you some sense of purpose or happiness and all that. And I like how that led to her leaving the group, Mantis leaving the group too, to try and figure out her own shit, or just kind of like figure out who can she be on her own and all that. And oh my gosh, this kind of pissed me off from others, but you know, people were saying like, oh, Mantis and Drax, could they actually be a thing and all that? And I'm like, no, they're friends, goddammit. And it gets me mad even more because at the very end, when she decides to leave, Drax is like, wait, what? You want to go? She's like, yeah. Well, who's gonna protect you though? And I'm like, oh, you saw her as a daughter, didn't you? Like, you wanted to take care of her right from the bat, huh? And so that's why it gets me so mad. In other reviews, people were like, oh, Drax and Mantis, they totally would like be together, wouldn't they? I'm like, no.
Go back and watch Volume 2. They're very openly disgusted by each other's appearance. I mean, the feeling is mutual when it comes from both of their perspective, but they love each other in a very different way. And you can make the very argument that, you know, Mantis to Drax, I think even... Didn't Drax say it himself in one of the first scenes that he shared with Mantis in Volume 2 that she reminded him of his daughter?
He did say that, huh? And so, yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially the last one of those last lines towards her. It's like, who's going to protect you? Like, that's so good. God damn it.
One of the things that broke my heart the most in the film was that when she was walking away, and he's just breaking down in tears.
I love the way she walks away, though, too, with those three.
Right?
That was badass.
The obelisks.
Yeah. But to go back with Gamora, though, I love the way James Gunn portrayed her connection with the Guardians, with Groot. Where she first hears, I am Groot. And he's just like, okay, hi, how are you? And then he says it again. And they're like, no, he says this. And she's like, are you guys just making up words like to what he's saying or something? How do you know what he's saying? And then at the very end, he's like, I am Groot. And she's like, yeah, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Oh, what? Like, she just realized, like, I understood what you were saying. And that was a great way to show, like, you gotta create a connection with Groot, but also create a connection with him. She created a connection with the Guardians, that she finally understood him, and she understood the entire group. In a sense, you know, and I love the way he portrayed that, and it worked so well at the very end when Groot said, "I love you guys," and it's like, oh, we're part of the group now, and
yes,
my god, that's such great directing right there. Honestly,
yep.
it was great. But yeah, it's just. And I guess in a way though, he also used Gamora as a way to show how much these characters have changed in no sense. I mean, they're still the same. They still argue with each other, but like they love each other, and I love those. I love that scene where they were in that one family's house. Drax kept trying to like lay down on the couch. And they're like, Drax, stop laying down. Get your feet off the couch.
Sit
like,
up.
He's like, but this is what it's for. And then he slowly starts going down. And, oh my god, I need to rewatch it because that scene, like, That fucking killed me. Everything about it is so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I mean there were sort of like two groups in this whole thing. There was like Quill and Gamora doing their thing, and then there was Nebula, Mantis, and Drax doing their own thing, and I love that group because Nebula, in a sense, is like the newest one in the group. I know like years have passed and all that, but she was the one that kind of just came in almost abruptly and had to like figure out what it actually means to be in a team. Because I mean, let's just say for now they haven't really been on the big mission and all that, like high stakes mission. I'm sure there's just been little ones or something. And so I loved her character progression and how she had to sort of accept that she needs to look in the good in others, not just like in the personality, but like what they can bring into the group and all. And so I love just kind of she just kept fighting with everyone. It was so funny.
Yeah.
But a lot of it though was effective because she was a scared for Rocket. She was. Of course, she would like be great friends with him because she's exactly what she was looking for in a group. She's smart. He knows like how to head into a direction that can be safe for the group and all that. Like he's just a good leader overall, and I think she kind of liked that about him. And then in that moment though, where they were on comms, they were talking to each other, and then you hear Rocket say, "The important thing though is that we're all okay." And she's like, "Rocket?" And she breaks down crying.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. That's great job for Karen Gillan. I think that might have been like the most emotional part, maybe.
Yeah, for her especially, I mean, like, he's all he had. He's all she had. And she's all he had. In those 5 years, everybody else was gone.
Yeah, and then it just kind of, and then at the very end, I loved how she accepted both Drax and Mantis for who they were. And that line she says to Drax of like, "You were never meant to be a destroyer. You were meant to be a dad." And then he's gonna raise who knows how many children.
Right.
It's he left things off. I mean, I guess we could just now get to the Dog Days part, but like he left things off so great with all of these characters, and I'm really glad that he didn't kill off any of them. I really thought he was going to kill off one of them, and I thought it would have been a little bit disappointing if he didn't, but no, I was way wrong about that because at the very end when they start playing Dog Days, in my head, I kind of thought, ooh, this song. Really? Like, especially because it was like a 2000s playlist. I thought he could have put in a number of things. And at first I thought I was skeptical about it just because it feels like a little bit too upbeat for this group. You know what I mean? But for one thing, I love this song. So as it kept going, I was getting into it and all that. And then as we've seen those scenes of them leaving, of Peter going back home, and just... Oh my God. But what sold me on it was when everyone... Drax, Nebula, and the rest of the group we're all dancing there in nowhere. They're all dancing, jumping up and down. At the very end, they start screaming, just pure joy or whatever you can call it. And that's when I realized, oh no, this song is perfect because that is where they are at. That is like they're in that upbeat moment, I guess you can say. They're having that same energy as the song, basically.
Yeah.
And it's a great happy ending for this franchise.
It's kind of hard to be mad at it after all that. I mean, the thing is, you look at all three of the films, I love Gunn's endings. Honestly, like, they're euphoric and emotional all in one. And this was kind of no exception. All those moments that you just mentioned clearly worked for me. Even when Rocket goes and goes back and saves the animals that no one was even thinking about,
Oh my God.
when he opens the cage and he sees where he comes from, North America, and then it says raccoon.
And
like legitimately had no idea this entire time that he was a raccoon.
Yeah, that they were making it up, but that's exactly who he is. And I love that he tells the High Evolutionary, it's like the name's Rocket Raccoon. It's not just like he accepts who he is, it's also like a big fuck you to the High Evolutionary, because he always thought of him as a low life, but he's accepting that in a sense, and I love that. Oh, that's such a great way to use it.
Also, No Sleep Till Brooklyn. The hallway sequence.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Also, that's the second time Chris Pratt is in the movie with that song.
Yeah, Kyle told that to me yesterday. I was like, oh, I forgot about that completely. But yeah, that's right. In the same month too, it looks like. Span of the same month, he's in a movie with that song featured in it, basically. But holy crap, that sequence! I was like, I think my brain was melting.
It didn't hit me till the very end that I was like, wait, was that all one shot? I can't believe I just fucking missed that. Wait, what? And
all of it, yeah.
Know. Oh my god, that's so great. I loved it.
The action was great. I loved the choice of the songs. Even the score by John Murphy, you know, having seen it 3 times, it is actually more subtle than people are giving it credit for. They don't play the dun 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 a lot, but they do play a lot of the To the Stars theme from the first film, which is a really subtle beat that a lot of people would miss. So the score really does stand out a lot more the third time around. The sheer scale, which is helped by amazing visual effects work. The visual effects work in this film is impeccable. Like, honestly, not a single shot I thought was bad.
Same.
Even, you know, a lot of the minor characters here, too, work really well. Everything with Kraglin and Cosmo, that stuff was good and hilarious as well. They each have their moments, as well as contributing to the third act. Yes.
People complained that Kraglin was in it too much. And I'm like, he was in it for like 3 scenes. I don't know what you're talking about. And, you know, and I love the fact that he had like a little mini arc in the movie. You know, it's great. Me personally, I wanted to know what's going to happen with the arrow. You know, is it going to be passed down to someone worthy of it in a sense? And it was great. One very minor complaint, but when he would call Cosmo a bad dog, I thought at the very end he was gonna say, "Yeah, that's Cosmo, my badass dog," or something like that. I don't know.
Oh my god!
It's probably cheesier than what he said, but I don't know. It would have been cool.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, man. Anything else to say here?
My other favorite joke was when they lost their spacesuits. And Drax, and they were yelling at Mantis, and Drax goes, "Oh wait, are we still yelling? Mantis, you jackass!"
You asshole. Mantis, you asshole.
Oh, okay. That's actually funnier somehow.
No, seriously, it is. Look, everything involving Mantis can be, you know, so humorous. Well, anything involving Drax and Mantis, I think, but just by the nature of who those characters are, oftentimes is humorous. Overall, man, I don't know what more I can say except that I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I can't wait to see it more and more times. I mean, I think you only saw it the one time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go see it again. Go see it again and again and again. Because to me, the film improved with every viewing. And I know you had a concern about pacing. To me, by the end of the third film, I had no issue whatsoever with pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that the plot just fucking moved. You know, like he gets hurt. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They know where to go, and they just go in. Like that part was great. But I think maybe I just need to rewatch it because I don't know. Maybe I just kind of expected too much from this movie or something, or I'm just kind of like putting all these theories together as the movie is progressing, and that does kind of like mess me up on terms of pacing.
Sure.
You know, so I don't know. It's
but
weird.
Yeah, needless to say, this is a terrific movie, and I think it goes without say here clearly, but it really does leave us very excited for Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, I'm sorry, for Superman Legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what to expect from that. That is one movie where I'm expecting something a little bit different from him. Just because of the character itself.
But I would make the argument that this movie, it was humorous, but it wasn't as humorous as the first two films. It's a lot more serious and dark. And I think that should really do a lot of good to assuage people who are concerned that Gunn can't make something that is more serious, but still. I think people take that to a degree. They take it to too far of a degree, you know? Because Superman, yeah, it's a serious story, but at the same time, like, maybe they have too much of what Zack Snyder in mind. Don't do that. Don't do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything else?
No. I'm good.
Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and end things there. Thank you, David, for being here. And for the rest of us who are listening, we're going to try and get some other people on here when they can to talk about Guardians and then, of course, what other movies and shows might be happening in the next few weeks and months. Stay tuned here on Red Spotlight every single Sunday for more content and more, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.